Hello and welcome to Movie of the Year, the only podcast with the science and the screaming to usually pick the best movie of any given year. But tonight we are doing something a little bit different. We're going to pick the best comedy TV show of 2020. I am your host, Greg. I am so pleased you could be with us, and I'm so pleased that joining us are all three of the Unnatural 20s. Hello, Unnatural 20s. Welcome to the show.
Hey, we're so happy to be here.
Very good. Very efficient, all three of them at the same time. So you know who they are. That was, of course, Books, Caitlin, and Cassie from the Unnatural 20s. A very good podcast. Also joining me is Mike.
Hello. I get a solo intro.
Yes, sir. And Ryan.
Hello.
Well, I'm so glad everybody is here. We're all accounted for. So the comedies of 2020, before we jump right into the ones that we feel missed the bracket, I want to ask, what is the state of 2020 comedy? What do you think, Ryan?
I think mostly it's the state of 2019 comedy, who had no idea how awful 2020 was going to be. I don't think that we have seen comedy comment on this yet. And there's a couple shows that have come out recently, like Superstore, where people have masks and shit, and maybe that's what it's going to be like. But watching all these 2020 comedies, they all seem so pure and young and not having any idea that, like, no, this year was actually worse than all other previous years.
Books, do you agree with that? That it was like the quiet before the storm?
It was absolutely the quiet before the storm, and I thought comedies were really great this year, but I don't know if I thought they were really great because the year was so shitty or because they were actually doing good things. I can't separate my judgment from that.
Yeah, comedies made a good escape in 2020, right? Like, they did a good job of helping us to disconnect. Do you agree with that, Caitlin?
Yeah, I definitely do. There was a lot of good comedies out this year, and available on all streaming services. I think I dipped my toes into a lot more comedies than I would have previous years because I had a lot more time.
Yeah, I remember being like, all these streaming services? No way. More the fool me, because I have so many of these streaming services pumping through my devices at the moment. Well, let's talk about shows that did not make the bracket. The ones we'll be talking about tonight are Ted Lasso and The Great, How To with John Wilson and Harley Quinn, What We Do in the Shadows, and The Good Place, Schitt's Creek, and Better Things.
Is that, what do you call that, Greg? 1927 Yankees? Like, it's a fucking murderer's row.
Yeah, this is 8 incredible comedies. Like, the state of 2020 comedy is so strong that there were not even in the original 16, and if you go back and listen to the preview show, you can hear the 16 that became the round of 8. There weren't even weaknesses in the round of 16. I mean, you could go out, and you could go out even further than that. And so let's do that right now. Cassie, do you have a comedy that didn't make the bracket, and you find yourself incensed?
Oh, man. Thank you for going to me first, because I know it's one that's loved by a lot of us. But it kind of made sense that it didn't make it, but it was so good. Auntie Donna's Big Ol' House of Fun.
Damn it.
Oh, shit.
Describe this show for our listeners.
Oh, man. It's a sketch TV show, and it's like 3, I think they're Australian dudes. They teamed up with like Scott Aukerman to get this TV show, and it's half like Lonely Island. There's a lot of songs in there, and then just dumb sketch shows. Like
Morning Brown.
Morning Brown. It gave us Morning Brown. I literally, like, everything is a drum has become my motto because of this show. Like, I'm constantly tapping on things, and people at work get infuriated with me, and my only response is, everything's a drum. So, like, you can't get mad at me.
I think this is the show that made us all feel like missionaries. Like, we put on like short sleeve shirts and ties and went door to door saying, "Have you heard of Auntie Donna?"
Yes.
Yeah, I was transformed into this because of Mike and Ryan. Like, Mike and Ryan preached the good word to me and changed my life. So,
have you heard the good word? Like, nobody vacillates between like very innocent, lovely friendship and pure demonic tomfoolery as Auntie Donna does.
It's also, I think it's important for me to note that my dad's sister's name is Donna. So
does she have a Big Ol' House of Fun?
She does not. It's actually the exact opposite, Mike. It's a tiny house of terrible. But I do have an Auntie Donna.
Well, if we were scoring, then that is definitely something that would get you a point, Ryan. But since I have no points to offer you, let's go to you next. What's one that missed the bracket that you are upset about?
Every year we go through the brackets, and we're always shocked by how many first seasons make the comedy and drama brackets, and it's because we get tired and bored of shit. But I think every year until this year, Insecure has been on there. And maybe it just felt like it was going through the motions. It wasn't doing anything new. But I would argue that that's stupid. Because
I have a predicto, Ryan.
What's that?
My prediction about that is that it's all because the main character and her friend were beefing. Now I'm blanking on both of their names.
Sex in the City style?
Molly and Issa.
Yeah, that Molly, that the whole season was kind of a little bit diminished because Molly and Issa, who were like the heart and soul of that show, were beefing the characters themselves were beefing the entire, and so it made it just slightly less joyful, really.
I thought your prediction was that the real actresses were pissed at each other. But
no,
yeah,
I bet they're best buds.
It wasn't as delightful, and this was supposed to be against men, right? Like, men are stupid. And then but we never had in all the first 3 or 4 seasons of Insecure, we never had this like week in, week out tense drama of will they, won't they be fucking friends again? Please, Molly and Issa, just get back together. And so we had that tension with all the typical comedy and mirror raps and splice of lives and musings that Insecure always offers us.
Yeah, the idea that you got to see Issa come up and then at the same time she like wasn't there with her best friend.
Right.
Very difficult. Can't wait till next season. I bet it gets back on the bracket just because they're going to be friends again. Mike, what is a show that you think should have made it on the bracket but did not?
Those were the two that I was most incensed about. So I'll say one, maybe it's because we all realized that the actual guy might be kind of a dickhead. But I thought Dave was phenomenal on Hulu about the up-and-comer joke rapper Dave, and how it went from super goofy, Lil Dicky, super goofy, then handling like mental health really well, and handling throughout the show pretty deftly. This guy's the protagonist in his own head, and then you slowly start to peel away, and it's like, but this is how the rest of the world is starting to see you. I thought it was a lot more mature than people gave that credit for as a show.
Yeah, this was very high on the bracket until like the very final corrections, and then it fell all the way off. I was surprised that it didn't do better.
Real quick, Greg, I do want to shout out that because of COVID or possibly other reasons, Atlanta, Barry, Black Lady Sketch Show, It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia, the other two, and Righteous Gemstones, like 2020 took a lot of shows away from us as well.
Yeah.
So, and I think that when I do this list next week for drama, there's going to be even more shows. So these are all worthy shows that are going to make the bracket even harder next year.
I mean, gosh, 400,000 American Lives, but then also a lot of really good comedy shows.
The real
right?
tragedies. It's just so crazy that Ryan was incensed that I was getting to talk about a show, so he decided to interrupt me saying anything about Dave to fucking talk about that. That's fine.
I let you finish every one of your sentences.
Every single
one of your two sentences you said about
very
Dave.
gracious.
All right, let's see. Who have I not gone to yet that has not had a chance? Okay, Caitlin, let's go with you. What show are you upset is not on the bracket?
Greg, I am super upset that, first of all, no one's brought this up because it was definitely one of the best comedies that I've seen, and it changed my life. A lot of things changed my life, but Julie and the Phantoms that came out on Netflix was fantastic and phenomenal. I thought it was just going to be a teen show, but it ended up being it got me. It was a really fun show.
Describe the show a little bit to our listeners.
Okay, so Julie and the Phantoms, it's about a young girl, and she's Puerto Rican, and her mom passes away. So she never goes into her mom's studio area. One day she goes in there, and there's these phantom boys in there, and they're playing some rock instruments, and she has to help them find their crossover, basically. And she rocks out with them because no one else can see them until they rock out together. So they play shows together, and it's a lot of fun. And then there's twists and turns, and God, it's so good.
I'm going to be honest. It would be easy to try to stunt on that show and act like I'm too cool for it, but that premise actually does sound kind of cool to me.
Especially when you find out that in the finale, those boys died because their mom had them chained up, and so they wrote a gold song.
No, Mike,
real dark turn.
How they die? Fucking sad. It's sad as hell. I
bet it is. It's how 4 young men die.
It was really sad.
Just to connect everything so far, I have an Auntie Donna, I have a sister named Julie, I have a friend named Dave, and all of them are insecure. So
It all comes back to
Dang.
Ryan.
Ryan, save it for a show that has points on it. You're crazy. All right, Books. Let's go to you last. What show should have made it but did not?
This is one of the first comedies that I watched in 2020, and I really enjoyed it. And I solely watched it because I got Apple TV for free, and it was available to me. And
Did you watch Ted Lasso?
I watched Ted Lasso, guys.
Isn't it so good?
Good news, bad news situation on this, Books.
After watching Ted Lasso, actually, I think I watched this before because Ted Lasso wasn't out. I watched a comedy called Trying, which is about a British couple trying to have a baby and then adopt a baby. And it is dark and hilarious and deeply emotional, but like heartwarming. And it's just very, very funny and well done. So I think that show was great. I think it got a lot of hate just because it was on Apple TV, which is kind of shitty thing to do to the writers and the actors and the creators of this show. So
your whole build-up, I thought you were going to say Dickinson. I was like, we get it. Your name is Books.
Maybe you've heard.
Maybe you've heard of this little TV show based off of an author. I don't know.
Well, unfortunately for those programs, all of which sound interesting, all of which are hilarious, it's just a boom time for very good comedies. And so there are a lot of other ones that we are going to talk about today instead, as soon as we come back from this break. And we are back with our first matchup. It is number 1 seed Ted Lasso versus number 8 seed The Great. We start off with feel-good comedy of the year, Ted Lasso, in which Jason Sudeikis reprises his commercial character, the titular Ted, in a show that in many ways eclipses the commercials from which it sprang. It's squaring off against The Great, a show that really is. Remember that movie, The Favorite? Well, this show saw that movie and thought, damn, that should all be set in Russia and probably be super violent, but otherwise, damn. So, Caitlin, I ask you this. Is there a chance we are seeing a potential finals matchup, but here in the first round?
These are two shows that I really, really enjoyed. And I didn't think I was going to like The Great because I honestly didn't like all of The Favorite. But I think The Great did an amazing job at pulling in all this drama with this rich history and stuff. And it was fantastic. So, yeah, whoever comes out of this, which I think I know who's going to come out of this, I think may take it all down, Greg.
Plus,
so you think the winner is found in this matchup?
Man, I think it could be.
Ryan, you have to respond to that.
The Great beat an hour. What are we, right off the bat, what are we doing here? Comedies
is this the
are
first
30
time
minutes.
ever?
I think Crazy Ex-Girlfriend bounced around between the comedy and drama brackets throughout the years. But I do have to say this. I know that Ted Lasso is the number 1 seed. And I know that means a lot to brackets, and I know the show means a lot to all of us. But I think that Ted Lasso is the most likable show of all time. I think that in the Rotten Tomatoes world where you either give like a plus or a minus, then Ted Lasso is at like 100%.
It's fresh, right? It's certified fresh.
It's certified fresh. But I do think that its likability at some point stops somewhere. And at a certain point, we have to start talking about what is actually good TV or great.
You're predicting
TV.
like it's stopping maybe like season 3 or season 4. It'll stop. Is that what you're saying?
No, I'm saying that The Great, even though that it was an hour, maybe was able to do more with what it presented to us.
Okay. Does anybody get angry just hearing Ryan voice that opinion?
I do. And you know what? It might be valid, but I feel the need to square up in a Denny's parking lot as soon as I came out of his mouth. So
there's no reason to say it might be valid.
You could take the girl out of Riverside.
Yeah.
I think we can fully say how great The Great is without besmirching Ted Lasso's good name.
It was, what surprised me the most about The Great was the acting, because I didn't know any of these people had comedic abilities, and they all knocked it out of the park.
Oh, Nicholas Hoult ruled.
Mr.
So
About
good.
a Boy. Do you guys remember when he was this tall?
About a boy.
He was all about a boy. And now he's grown up and kept his exact same eyes and eyebrows, which is insane.
And that would make
He
you
was
mad.
Tony on Skins, a very popular BBC show
He
that
was
some
R and Warm Bodies.
Yes,
And
I was going to bring that up. Man.
Let's just say when Greg
He's-
says BBC, it's not probably what you're thinking of.
No, but
It's
if I
not
say
Big Black.
BBW, it definitely
Okay,
is.
good.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think that it's a show that has a ton to say and it does a lot great. And then it also has Nicholas Hoult, who is just a comedic dervish the entire time.
Yeah.
Go, Mike.
I think his career was weird because he was just in this kind of like sci-fi corner ghetto, and people were just like, "You're allowed to be in those movies," and your
Fury Road,
only
right?
so high. And Fury Road was like, "I'm not just the new Beast. I'm not just R. I can be good." And then after Fury Road, he jumped to The Favorite, and his comedic timing in that started to flourish. And so this, he just kept running with it. I hope we see just so many things from little Nicky Holt from here on out.
And Mike, I do have to ask, when you say new Beast, do you mean NU Beast?
Yeah. The Dark Beast. He's a little crazy.
And he did, like, this show in general was super good at balancing, like, you wanted to root for him and you also hated him. Like, at every episode, you wanted to be like, maybe he is becoming better. And then he would, like, murder a whole bunch of people, like, make everybody stab their eyes out. And you're like,
shoot a bear.
He's actually the worst. But every episode, you had a moment where you rooted for him. It was the weirdest dynamic.
And this is, I remember when Super 8 came out, we were like, oh shit, is this the better Fanning? Can Dakota not hold a candle to Elle? And then Elle kind of went away for a while, and she's back and better than ever. Mm-hmm. And she's a tour de force, and like just is like the glue that holds this show together.
As much as it's his performance, it's hers as well, right? I mean, she is like so crazy good, and obviously she's the titular great, right?
And I think one of the...
I mean, that's not what Nicholas Hoult would have you believe, but yes, I think that's true.
One of the fantastic parts of the show, aside from the two brilliant leads who carry us through everything, is that usually when shows kind of push at the seams of the absurdities, it distances you from the reality of the characters' emotions or the... But this still holds you at that level, even when it actually brings you in even more, even when the most absurd things are happening. And that's just credit to the brilliant writing that is done here.
Yeah. Early on, the show like starts off brutal and then gets pretty goofy and then comes back down when Elle confronts the priest, who's a great actor, and he's squirrely and he's at everything. And she's like, well, you put your fingers inside of me against my will. And it's like not played for laughs. And you're like, oh, so we're not just going to be goofy after that. We're gonna have to deal with ramifications of horror. Okay.
And the guy always has the face of like, oh, I thought you got over that. No, I did not. I did not do that. Yeah. But were you guys at any point watching it surprised that it was in the comedy bracket?
No,
I was dying the whole time.
Yeah, it's a comedy with dramatic elements
and costumes,
but it is so clearly a comedy. It's staged as a comedy in every way. Like, there's no scene where it takes time off from being funny. You know,
every time he says "boys," I said this. I laugh, never because of what he's saying, but because of just that instinct. And he's so good at playing that kind of pompous ass.
There was a moment when there was a choir of children that came in, and they were the choir of Chernobyl. And they were like just making comments like, oh, they're glowing and things like that.
They're glowing.
And they just had a lot of like little comments like that. So it was very clearly a comedy, and it did have a lot of drama. But man, I was laughing the whole time.
It also
I feel like we're doing a... Go ahead, sorry, Cassie.
No, you're good. It had the good background of making fun of Russians, which is just a solid thing to like kind of lean back on. But they didn't overplay it. It was which I was surprising. But like, you knew it was a comedy because they're like, they're Russian. Look at them. It's weird.
Huzzah!
I do have to say though, it's weird. We're not talking about the lesser show, Ted Lasso, at all. Like, guys, this is our last chance to talk about Ted Lasso. So,
Ryan,
should we not do that?
Ryan.
So, Ted Lasso, arguably the most successul show based off a commercial since the Cavemen show.
Oh, I missed the Cavemen.
Nick Kroll.
Yeah. It is just, I keep bringing that up because it's so hard for me to believe that this is actually a show this good with this much heart that's so lovable comes from a character made for
I thought
commercials.
You made that up in the
I
intro.
thought you did too.
The idea is supposed to be, get Americans used to the Premier League, get used to English, what they call footy, or lift biscuits. And,
there's no way they call it
so then, but then
farts.
it was so popular, and Jason Sudeikis fell in love with the project, and so they decided to make the show. It, beyond just having a lot of heart, it's an extremely funny show, right? Like, heart isn't the only thing it has going for it.
I think it's heart forward, and that's, before I watched it, that's all anybody talked about. So I was like, oh, so it's not actually going to be funny, it's just going to be heartwarming. But I think the heart wins people over because of the years of It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia type shows of, look how fucking bad these people are.
And I gotta say, when it's heart forward, and this is something that I believe that Borat says it like this. My wife said while watching the show, "Is this the only heart forward show? Like that is on TV right now? Is this the only show that has heart first and then all the rest second?"
But even with its heart, because I think there's a lot of treacly garbage through the decades of TV that's heart forward, it's still always super funny. Like, Ted is a funny character in this world. He knows, it feels like half the time he's saying something weird and Southern, he knows he's gonna freak people out. Like, he knows how funny all of this is. And him and Beard, both like, it's rare that funny people, like characters who are supposed to be funny to the world, not just the people watching it, work. And the two of them are a comedy duo.
The one thing that's kind of unfortunate about Ted Lasso is I couldn't imagine being English and enjoying the show, because it really feels like a show about Americans encountering, how odd English culture is. And it to me, it seems more like it's written from the perspective of a tourist in England. And a lot of that comes down to the way the Premier League is sort of shown. As someone who follows the Premier League a little bit, it doesn't actually
we were
feel...
going to get into this. Oh, Greg.
It doesn't actually... I couldn't imagine being in England and being a fan of the Premier League and then watching how they treat it. Because for it, a lot of times, like, they treat the team that he coaches, they treat it like it's a kind of rinky-dink organization. That's a huge multi-million-dollar organization. Like, they're not going to have the trainer
and then
being one of the coaches.
In the final game, one of the winning plays is an American football play, which I have to guess. I don't know a lot about soccer or football, non-Americano, but that's not going to work in soccer, right?
It's spoilers, but what it is they do the knuckle puck from Mighty Ducks too.
But in the meantime, Ted Lasso will talk about Alfonso Ribeiro, and he will say, anytime I see him, I will take a minute and I will sit right there and I will watch him. And
that man is the greatest physical comedian of all time. Well, unfortunately, it's time for us to pick which one of these comedies is going to move on. I don't think there is a much harder first round matchup, but honestly, I don't think there are many that are easier than this either. So let's just get to it. Let's just get used to it. It's going to be a tough night, and I don't want to hear whining. So, Ryan, what do you think should move on? Ted Lasso or The Great?
It's The Great.
Ooh.
One vote for The Great. Caitlin, what do you say?
Man, I think I laughed harder watching The Great. Ted Lasso made me feel more happy after watching it and like hopeful for the world. So they're really both great ones, but I'm going to go with Ted Lasso.
All right. 1-1. Cassie?
For me, just an insane bracket, but yeah, it's going to be Ted Lasso.
All right, Ted Lasso pulls into the lead. Books.
This is such a tough one because I do love both these shows, but I still think Ted Lasso was better.
All right, 3-1 Ted Lasso. What do you say, Mike?
Yeah, there's only one show. We have a lot of homework in this era of our lives where we have to watch and listen to 1,000 things, and there's only one project that I could not stop and got behind on everything else because I couldn't stop hitting next on Ted Lasso.
Ted Lasso, moving on. Remember, this is not to besmirch The Great. It is such an amazing show. This really is the second round. If you want to see what happened in the first round, listen to the preview show. We're going to take a quick break, and when we come back, it's time to give out our first ever comedy award.
Hey guys, thank you so much for listening so far. And let me just tell you that everything ahead of this commercial is much better than what came before it. That's my guarantee. While I have you here, let me tell you about a website. It's called yourpopfilter.com, and it's everything you need that's related to Pop Filter. Everything Mike, everything Ryan, everything Greg, everything Cassie, everything is there at yourpopfilter.com. While you're there, go to yourpopfilter.com/Amazon. Make that your new Amazon bookmark and do your shopping from there. That way, we get a little piece of the action, and Amazon doesn't. Make sure you're also listening to everything that Pop Filter has to offer, which includes the Superhero Show, a podcast that covers every single TV show that's based on a comic book or comic book property, and Movie of the Year, where we sit down and try and figure out what is the single greatest movie of any given year. That's Superhero Show, that's Movie of the Year, and that's yourpopfilter.com. Rate, subscribe, review. Bye.
We are back, and I am so excited because one of my favorite things we do on this show is give out awards. I'm a participation trophy kid, and just awards always get me jazzed. I was always getting like most improved, which meant like you're bad and you always were bad, but I don't know. We have to give you something.
You're less
so
bad
round.
now.
Yeah, you're less bad. It's the Miss Congeniality Award. God darn it, you're the nicest.
We don't want you to go incel, so here's a little trophy. It is time to pick. It is time to pick the best supporting actress. I cannot believe how good the candidates are for this, and there were a bunch that got left off as well. But here we go. First nominee from Better Things, it's Hannah Allgood. McKenna, do you remember which one Hannah Allgood is from Better Things?
No, I can tell you right now. Is it Duke?
No, it's
Frankie?
the middle one. Frankie.
So this was definitely Frankie's season, right?
Oh, yes. Okay, wait. I'm so terrible with actress's name, but this was Frankie's time to shine. We see Frankie just blossoming into a young woman. She's just so much more outspoken with her mom. And
but then also nice to her mom.
Yeah.
This is the season where she's nicest to her mom.
But like more open with herself, I think.
Mm-hmm.
We see that. And yeah, this is a good season for Frankie and Hannah.
And it's
Allgood.
very clear that she's growing up into the coolest person who has ever lived. By the end of the season, she's wearing a suit and she has her hair slicked back, and it's like, dang, I want to grow up to be this 15-year-old.
And isn't the mom sort of doing that? Like, I'm going to take a lot of shit right now in order to make the best adult in the future.
That's a good point. Up next from Harley Quinn, it's Lake Bell. Cassie Lake Bell plays Poison Ivy.
Oh my gosh. She was like, it's insane to have this much talent in voice acting. Like, these were the ones that were hard to judge for me because it's voice acting, but they freaking kill it. Like, this is the best version of just like girl friendship, and like for them to portray like so much without having like them like acting or bringing what they want to it and relying on animation. She does so good at like making this character real and just supportive. I love how everything she brought to this.
The amount of insecurity she injects into this cool character is weirdly real. Who can control plants? It's crazy that she could do that, like with a lilt of her voice.
And the other thing too is that I believe that she does sort of love Kite Man, but sort of doesn't the entire time. That's crazy.
And as a Kite Man, that means a lot to you, doesn't it?
The amount of regret you hear in her voice every time she like wants to talk about Kite Man, but like is into it, is so good.
Next up from The Good Place, Ryan, it's Darcy Carden. Do you remember who this is on The Good Place?
I do remember who this is. Yeah, Greg, I've watched some TV this year. Thank you. And I can't, like, this is such a throwaway role, right? Like, with Kristen Bell and Ted Danson on the show. And then also you have the supporting actors that we'll probably get to at some point. You could have just stood there and been a robot. Much like the best robot performance of all time, Vicky from Small Wonder. But she became a star. She took over this show and became the most important, most famous thing about it. Darcy Carden, like, I don't know if it was in this season or the last season, but when she had to do impressions of all of the cast of the Good Place, like, she is, I've known for a long time, like, because of podcasts I listened to, that she was sort of a comedic genius, but I'm so glad that NBC shined that out to the world, you know?
Darcy Carden, yeah, probably the best part of one of the best shows ever. All right, from Schitt's Creek, it is Emily Hampshire. Caitlin, do you know who from Schitt's Creek?
Yes, I'm blanking
Emily
on
Hampshire
her name,
is.
but she's the one who is the manager at the hotel.
Stevie.
Yes. Very good.
What's her name?
Stevie.
Yes.
Yes.
She the last season, I think books have brought it up beforehand. I don't know if they do the best for her character, but she does really great at portraying, you know, someone who's searching for their path in this world, but then also like learning what she wants to do and then supporting all of her friends. So I really I think she does a great job at being an actress.
Yeah, Steve.
She act
real good.
She sure did act.
Stevie and Daniel have like one of the nicest friend relationships.
While
I
still
feel
being
like,
dickheads to each other like real friends should be.
yeah, for sure.
That's
I feel
what she's
like,
very good at being a dickhead, and that's where she shines, and they knew it.
She's going to be the lead of the reboot of Mary Hartman, and I'm really excited because I think she's great, and I think she could totally own a show.
there's a whole group of people, myself definitely a part of them, where like just more interested in people that are kind of mean, and Stevie's kind of mean, and it's honestly, it's not a defect, it's actually something that like recommends her.
The only thing that's weird about Stevie and Dan Levy's relationship on the show is that they did not start a podcast. Like, it's
Man, I would listen to it.
From the aforementioned Ted Lasso, Mike, it's Juno Temple.
So Juno Temple is... She first is dating the dickhead guy and then is dating the older dickhead guy. And she's one of those names that I've just heard forever. And this is the first thing I like really paid attention. And she's a heavy hitter, man, in comedy. She's super funny. She doesn't play a flat character where I think the writers are great in this. In like a 90s version of this, she is a sketch one-note thing.
For
and
sure.
she really injects humanity into it. And again, talk about people who like, she knows she's funny and she knows she can fuck with everybody around her because she's not a complete asshole, but she knows how she looks and she knows how to use the power that gives her in this world.
just a bit of an asshole, isn't it?
Yeah. And
Yeah, bruv.
Yeah, I agree with you, Mike. This was like a name that I knew, and I think if you showed me like her headshot, I could have said, "Oh yeah, that's Juno Temple." But I did not know she had the comedic chops. And the when you think of like the heart of this show, you think of Jason Sudeikis, but it's in every character, and she is definitely one of them. They form like a little cohort, her and the boss and Jason Sudeikis and the boss's assistant, and it's like you want to be a part of that friend group so bad.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
But here's the thing about other fan groups that I've had. They'll actually let you in. Like, they'll actually be friends with you.
Yeah, for her.
Speaking of,
go for it.
well, Cassie, you can talk about her, but also talk about from Ted Lasso, Hannah Waddingham, another member of that group. This is the boss, right? Ryan?
Rebecca.
This,
Yeah.
like, I was blown away with her acting abilities. To go from being a stone cold bitch who strikes the fear as soon as she walks into a room, like, I was on a screen in a different country from her, and I was like, I would do anything this woman says. Like, she's in these power hills, like, you are the boss. But then, like, we get her full breakdown. You get so many breakdowns from her. She can act her ass off, and she has, like, the range in this episode, or this show, to do, like, everything she needed to do. It was insane to watch her.
Do you know what it is? Do you know why she should win? Based on just her face, I want one of those biscuits so bad. Oh, God, I want those cookies so bad.
And that she for a while hates the person giving them to her, but she can't stop from like eating them like Gollum needs his ring.
How about the fact that she sings like a freaking
Oh, yeah.
angel?
Oh, yeah.
Better than
Oh,
Elsa.
That episode is great when her friend is like, "Oh, you like this? Then you'd actually love Rebecca. This isn't Rebecca." And like that injects so much more humanity throughout her whole run.
Ask my neighbors when I'm showering. Is that song from Frozen a hard song to sing? Yes, it is. Greg, can I predict real quick?
Yeah, I was going to ask you to, actually.
Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
Oh, hey, Ryan, make a prediction here, man.
I think Lake Bell. It's got to be Lake Bell. She's the broiest of the bros, right?
Yeah, Lake Bell we know from like way back. This is like, it feels like the name of like an old friend or something. Lake Bell like never has quite achieved what it seems like her talent and you know, her beauty would bring to her. So hopefully she will win this award. All right, I'm now tearing open the envelope. Tear. And I'm taking out the
Michael Winslow over here.
the smaller envelope. This one's already open though.
Wow.
The winner from The Good Place, it's Darcy Carden.
Oh, she's very good.
Yeah, this feels definitely very earned, right? This is the last chance for her to get it because the show has ceased to exist. It's gone.
She'll
through
never
the
work
portal.
again. So. Too
if
many
we have
apostrophes
anything
in her
to do
name.
with it.
She is still on Barry, so hopefully she can do it on Barry. But it was last time for the character, I guess. The not a girl robot. When we come back, we are going to get to our next matchup.
Hola, Filterinos. I just wanted to interrupt real briefly and say thank you for listening. Thank you for your support. If you want to support us a little more directly, you can go to patreon.com/yourpopfilter. There, depending on what tier you pick, $1 a month, $5 a month. If you're crazy, anything more than $5 a month, don't do that. You can get extra content. There's extra shows, extra series, behind-the-scenes stuff. You could pay for Ryan to draw you a picture. I can write you a poem. You can get the shirts off our very own backs. All of that and so much more over at patreon.com/yourpopfilter. While you're on the internet, you should check out Shady Monk. He does all the tunes you've been listening to. He's on Bandcamp, he's on Spotify, SoundCloud, wherever kids get their music these days that I'm too old to know. Shady Monk lives there. You can probably follow him on Twitter and Instagram as well. That's Shady Monk. Wherever you get music, check him out.
Up next, it is number 4, How To with John Wilson versus number 12, Harley Quinn. Interesting matchup here because we have one show, How To, which celebrates and explores the depths of cringe, versus number 12, Harley Quinn, a show about letting your freak flag fly and also planting it in the chest of your enemies. How To with John Wilson follows John Wilson as he attempts to navigate strange, dark pathways of both New York and the human soul. Harley Quinn explores claiming your own voice and your own identity in a world that claims to support that and yet makes it very difficult to do. So, Cassie, I ask you this. Which of these two shows did you connect with more emotionally? And is it weird that that this is the focus of that question?
A little weird, but honestly, like, surprising in how much it kind of makes me, like, this is probably what I'll judge on. Because, like, How To with John Wilson, like, I did not think I would connect to it just because of that cringe factor. Like,
yes.
It is very much so, like, it's hard to watch, but then it's endearing in how hard it is to watch. But you gotta power through a lot of awkwardness.
Did you find it hard to watch that guy stretch his foreskin?
Yes.
Yes. I was like,
but
surely...
not hard to listen to that song. Super catchy.
Like, as soon as they brought that up, I was like, surely they won't show this thing, right? No,
surely
like,
they won't.
Come into my bathroom.
So many angles they showed us.
And it's called TLC Tuggers, which is kind of funny because I Think You Should Leave had that show, those shirt called TC Tuggers. And it's basically a similar but different product. Did anybody else find it hard to literally actually keep your eyes on the screen for the entire How To show?
But that's what part of what's cringy about it is, like, his, like, cringe comedy's been around for so long, but because of the way John Wilson is, like, how his brain is broken, we're seeing everything from his point of view, so you are fully in the awkward hot seat. And that makes it really hard to just... It's like those nightmares you'd have.
I feel like
the reason that I didn't, though, is that because Socrates or somebody said, I don't know, ask Ted Lasso, be curious, not judgmental. And I feel like that so much comedy has been about being awkward and then also being judgmental. And I feel like that John Wilson killed at just being curious, period. And that was it. And so he filmed all of the city all of the time, and he just asked questions, and he never judged, and we never judged. And I think, like, we have gone from, like, Will Ferrell to Michael Scott to Nathan Fielder to this perfect version, and that's John Wilson. And I could not believe the footage that he got, and I could not believe how he was able to, like, put episodes together.
He did judge his friends for writing off his birthday dinner.
That is true.
But that's what such a good tool is, because there's no judgment. So when it comes out, it hits way harder than it would have if it was always there.
Well, and I think to that point, that's what made the cringe watchable, is there's an earnestness there. So much before cringe was cringe and it felt forced cringe. And this just seems genuine. And that's how because I hate cringe. I am so bad with it. But I found myself really enjoying this show because of the earnest quality of lack of judgment to just the approaching with questions.
Right. It shows us, I think, that on the other side of cringe, on the other side of, like, kind of a thin veil of awkwardness, because it's really just moments of awkwardness, lies deep human connection, and that we're denying ourselves the deep human connection for this very thin gauze of awkwardness. And this show punctures that relatively easily, and you find value in, like, almost everyone he comes in contact with.
I mean, in the first episode, we get this guy who... He's a guy. He's the guy that you meet in Miami. Like,
he literally finds a new type of guy live on camera.
And this is a person that I have watched Greg or Mike talk to on trips and just look at me and say, "Please help me." And to that I say no. And then I just watch.
I'm not getting stuck in that quicksand.
I look down and say no.
And I watched the conversation happen, and John Wilson is really great at saying, "You know what, dude, your overlying douchebag pales in comparison to your underlying genuineness, you know?" And that's what he brought throughout the entire show. Whereas Harley Quinn was funny. This might be the funniest show out of all of our 8 shows, right?
And it's got something that John Wilson develops. It almost comes in with, which is we know these characters, and so we're excited to see them already. And then we find out that they're different versions of themselves. Like Poison Ivy is not the cracked, weird child person from the comics.
Even
Instead,
Clayface, even the Tony Vale big person,
always like making new characters and really trying to figure out who they are.
Well, and that's what I think is genius about this show, because like it's Harley's arc is what do you do without the Joker, this thing that defined you, but they all have that you're human and you are broken in this different way.
And for most of them, Batman is a small part of it or a big part of it. Like, what do we do without Batman? Fuck, man, we really relied on Batman being there.
Because then I wouldn't have to think about why I am the way I am. Like, and they all are human and fragile and vulnerable, and it is a super funny show, but that it takes that time. And that King Shark is like the most gentle of them.
Oh my God, Ron. Dude, okay, if you have a show, here's what you do. You call up Ron Funches and you get him on your show.
You just say please.
It's just going to make it better.
He has the most beautiful soul/voice of all time. He's so funny, he's so good, and he kills it as, well, turned out to be like Lord Sharkington of the ocean.
Also, when you're an actor or a voice actor whose voice gets crazy, when you like, I talk like this, it drives me insane, except for Ron Funches, where I actually find it like appeasing. Like, I actually like to listen.
There's a huge
to
difference between Ron Funches' unique voice and Bobcat Goldthwait.
Yes,
Bobcat, which is what you.
Bobcat catching strays live on the show. Doesn't it all feel like? I love Harley Quinn. It's a great show, but when I look over the other shows, is this the one that's maybe a little bit outclassed by some of the others?
I wonder if because it still has that, like, we're a cartoon and we're crass. Isn't that wild?
Yeah.
And that hasn't been wild in 20-something years.
And then
it feels like there should be a motherfucker counter for every episode. Because usually you're watching for like 3 seconds before Harley Quinn's like, motherfuckers! You're like, come on, there's more than that.
I think the thing that propels it is almost supporting actress winner Lake Bell. The fact that like her and Harley's relationship, and the fact that they hooked up and might be in love, and might be season 3 is that relationship, but it's the two of them together, like holding hands and going through everything, that keeps it grounded and super like deep. You know, like while they're defeating giant DC villains, like we can defeat Darkseid together. Is the thing that feels as organic as an episode of Freaks and Geeks, and that's kind of impressive.
I feel like the characters that have chemistry and keep sleeping with each other, even though they're not ending up in a relationship with each other, I feel like that's something you see in real life a lot, but you don't see much in
cartoons.
Fiction. Yeah, in cartoons,
you don't see it enough in cartoons.
But it's a very real relationship type, which is we just keep having sex even though we...
What's up, mid-20s?
Yeah. It feels like for a show about people discovering themselves and who they're really supposed to be, it feels very appropriate that you have this sort of like nebulous relationship. But... Yeah. I do have to deliver the unfortunate news that we're going to have to vote one of these on, and really it's anyone's guess as to how it's going to go. Mike, let's start with you. What's it going to be? Number 4, How To with John Wilson, or number 12, Harley Quinn?
I think this is my least favorite matchup because I have a character from one of these shows literally tattooed on my body, John Wilson.
Yeah, there you go.
So I have Harley on my body. Favorite character, and I think the show's so funny, and it's crazy that Justin Halpern, the guy who made Shit My Dad Says, actually became a solid showrunner. And then John Wilson, it's crazy to see how I view the world on TV. And it's amazing. It's golden, and I think it would teach people to be more compassionate and kinder, but also, while it doesn't hide from it's funny. Like, John knows how funny all of this is. I think this show is fucking magical. How To with John Wilson.
All right. How To with John Wilson. What's it going to be for you, Books?
Harley Quinn was one of the surprise shows for me because I hadn't really heard much about it. However, I thought I was going to hate How To with John Wilson because of the cringe factor, and I think it is just so brilliant at capturing what most of us don't want to see and then forcing us to see it in the world around us and then appreciate it. And that's a deeper level of comedy, aside from just making us laugh and making us appreciate humor. And so I think How To with John Wilson is going to
How To with John Wilson, featuring hours of dogs shitting on the streets of New York.
Those camera cuts are so perfect with his voiceover, just the cars going by. It's just so beautiful.
Cassie, what's it going to be? How To or Harley Quinn?
Yeah, I'm a simple person, and How To with John Wilson was very, it was touching in a way I didn't expect, but I'm just simple. I just need a good laugh, like a laugh per minute, and for them to throw in a motherfucker, so it's going to be Harley Quinn for me.
All right, Harley Quinn. Caitlin?
How To with John Wilson was surprisingly really funny, but also really dark at times, too. Like, the dead bodies kind of falling off, like the gurney in the first episode, and then them picking up, pieces of something that was
Manchester
leaving.
by the Sea vibes. Very good.
Yeah. There was some really dark elements to it, which surprised me when I was laughing in one moment and then oh shit, this is all real in another. And I'm with Cassie when it comes to laughs and funs, and Harley Quinn really fucking got me. I went back and watched the first whole first season just to make sure that we knew everything that was going on because it's such a great show. So I'm going to go with Harley Quinn.
I have only seen the second season, and I didn't want to watch the first season because I was afraid I'm so old. I was afraid I'd get confused. I'm going back to watch the first season for sure.
It's super
Ryan,
funny.
it is tied coming to you. You are Big Daddy Decides a Lot. Do you have a decision for us?
Having never been to New York, I fucking hate New York. I hate people from New York. I hate people that say you should go to New York. A lot of times people be like, you should go to New York. Have you ever seen Taxi Driver? Yes, I have. That's part of why I'm not going to do it. But
you should go die.
How To made me want to go there and just be a part of just all of the different types of people, from old women who love risotto to old men who just hang weights off their wiener and call it a day. I think that How To is one of the best shows that maybe we've ever talked about.
Yeah, and could you replace the word show, or could you strike the word show, Ryan? Is this one of the best pieces of art we've ever encountered, do you think?
Best album, best movie, best anything. I do think that How To with John Wilson is this perfect, it's because of Nathan Fielder, but it's also against Nathan Fielder. I think that it really needs to be seen.
Yeah, you told me to push through the cringe, and I'm so glad that you did, because I had to push through so much of it, but you can always feel that it's going to be worth it, and it is. So it's moving on. Congratulations, How To with John Wilson. When we come back, an even more awarding conversation. Stick around. I think you're going to like what I did there. Well, that is very, very funny. Or very sad, and perhaps now you have something to think about. Or very problematic, and perhaps we have something to think about. But in any event, I'm sure you have some reaction to what you're listening to. So why not check us out on the social media? You can go to Instagram or Twitter and find us at YourPopFilter. Email contacts@YourPopFilter. Hey, everybody. Keep watching them movies. Now, earlier I said this was going to be an awarding conversation. And let me tell you why, listeners. It's because we're going to be giving out another one of our awards. That's just a little bit of fun. I thought we'd... just a little something to enjoy, break up the monotony.
Wow.
I don't get it.
It's a bonbon. Don't worry. It's right over the head with that one. In these shows, we don't just have women supporting.
Finally.
No.
Wow.
The gentlemen are also supporting with their acting as well. And I want to talk about the best of the supporting actors. So we just brought this gentleman up, very close to all of our hearts. From Harley Quinn, it's Ron Funches. Cassie, talk about our friend Ron.
I mean, what more can we say besides he's the most delightful human that has ever graced this earth? And, do put him in everything. His laugh, can save... It, saved my soul, honestly. I don't know how he manages to make, with his voice, you would think characters would seem fake, but he brings like I want to say humbleness. I don't know if humbleness is the rightness or realness, really, to the character.
Down to earth quality.
Yeah, that really like brings the characters to life while having this voice where you're just like, the character is in his voice, but then also in the humanity like that he brings to that.
Does anybody, and I hesitate to ask this question, have a good Ron Funches?
No.
No, nobody does?
No.
Mike, come on, I can see you working on
You
it.
can see me trying to, hey, I like the video games. Nope, I don't have one.
Close.
I'll
kinda
work on it and come back.
That kind of sounded like the weird old pervert from Family Guy.
Yeah.
Which is
Not
to say,
enough-
just sounded like you, Mike.
Oh!
Up next
You summed me.
is From What We Do in the Shadows, Harvey Guillermo, to you and me, vampire hunter extraordinaire. Mike, talk about Guillermo.
I was almost shocked that he was on supporting actor because this is Guillermo's season. And
He
this
really did own the whole thing, right?
Yeah, it was. It
owned it.
opens
He-
and closes on him.
arced, and he really grounds the whole show. And you can realize, like, both seasons are about him and the whole shit. Like, what he puts up with and his simmering rage and then him trying to hide everything that's going on. This kid's going places, man. He's so funny he's captured the Office style, like, look at the camera, but without being like, I don't think people are going to make fun of him like they make fun of Krasinski in 5 years.
No, he's so much more subtle with everything he does with his face. Like, he's really aware of everything that like an HD camera picks up in terms of like your reactions, and he reacts so much more subtly than a lot of other comedic actors.
Yeah, most people like will mug, right, and freeze it like that, and him, it's in a little eye glance, like it's so quick.
Well, what we got to learn through those eye glances is maybe I should not be a vampire. Like maybe this is terrible.
Totally, these are the biggest idiots of all time, and they're so mean. Yeah, he's like, maybe it's not the life for me. From The Good Place, William Jackson Harper. Caitlin, talk about our beautiful, buff, neurotic friend.
Yes, our friend Chidi over here. This being the last season of The Good Place, I think they did a really good job at wrapping up all of the characters. And William Jackson Harper came in and gave Chidi the most beautiful ending. And having to decide when to leave, like be done, is so hard to capture. And I think he did such a good job.
Before 2020, it was hard to imagine. Yeah. Now, if we had that portal, we would all just like push each other out of the way trying to walk through it.
Having everything you ever wanted.
Isn't it so crazy that with all of these actor awards and all these shows, we're talking about the moments that made us cry the most? And when he walked through it, my God.
Yeah.
My God.
Yeah, you did a great job.
And it was fun this season because we got to see like confident Chidi, which then is just that's his like fatal flaw or whatever. And so without that, he's just the perfect person. And it's fun to get a look at that guy.
And built like me.
Yeah, built like Ryan.
I've always looked at Ryan and been like, I could wash my towels on that torso.
That looks like Buff Chidi.
I remember the first time Chidi ever took off his shirt for any reason, and I was like to the show, I was like, explain.
Yeah.
Explain why this is. Why does this character look like this? What's going on? He should be doing sit-ups like nonstop. All right. Also, perhaps doing sit-ups nonstop. Also, from What We Do in the Shadows, Mark, how do you say his name? Proshk?
Yeah.
Proshk?
Probably.
Proshk.
The energy vampire from What We Do in the Shadows.
Is this me?
No, sorry. This is for books.
Okay, Colin is the one vampire I think I would want to be. An energy
Colin
vampire.
Robinson.
He
And
plays...
Arthur
wanna
McKenna.
be.
Yeah, that works out nicely for you.
Set yourself up.
He plays this energy vampire so well, and you would think that this role would call for like one note acting because your goal is to just suck the life out of people. But he doesn't. He carries so many tones and nuances through everything he delivers. And the episode, The Promotion, was just a great view of just how much he can do with this role. So
he gets like extra power from being promoted, and he can drain more people, and he gets like a full head of blonde, slick back hair.
It's so good.
And yet another reason why McKenna and Greg are the same person is because when me and Mike or Cassie and Caitlin are going buck wild, we can always count on McKenna or Greg to walk in the room and be like, nope. And that's this guy.
You know, actually, those phones contain many chemicals that are awful for the environment. So, up next, from Harley Quinn, Pop Filter Hall of Famer, Alan, I have more than one Two-Dick. Ryan, talk to us about Harley Quinn's Alan Tudyk.
Well, Greg, it's hard. I mean, he's a Pop Filter Hall of Famer, and he is taking on the role of Joker, which apparently is like a actorly thing to do. Like, you're not an actor until you've portrayed the Joker. But I want to talk about Clayface. I want to talk about, again, how Clayface immediately said, oh, I'll be the young sorority girl, and ran in there and did it. Clayface is the secret weapon of this show. Does not get enough credit. I know Ron Funches is awesome, but having Clayface do all the things he does and just being 90% terrible but 10% heartwarming at all of them, I think that Clayface is the star of the show. And his Joker's good.
Yeah. But Clayface's commitment to making three-dimensional, not characters, but like personas, like people. Right. And no matter what they're doing.
Because he's an actor.
No matter what they're doing, all he's talking about is his character in the moment. It's never like what's going on in the plan. It's always like, well, Barbara would want to be focused on herself right now. Well, I can't believe we have to actually pick a winner from that group because honestly, these are born winners who became champions. But only one can leave with an award. And that one
Alan.
is... Open up this envelope just like that. Okay. Harvey Guillen from What We Do in the Shadows.
Nice.
I'm very excited. This seems like the right choice. I'm glad that we could be counted on to do this. You're all winners in my book, but only Harvey Guillen will get the award. When we come back, another matchup. We are back with our next matchup, and it is number 2, What We Do in the Shadows, versus number 10, The Good Place.
Do you also, Greg, number 2 in the Shadows? I do that.
I don't want to do it right in daylight like I'm some sort of New York City dog.
Or person.
I'm a person. I won't be reduced to a New York City dog. I would at least be like a dog on a big farm, you know, running around with a lot to hump. All right. This next matchup sees a battle between number 2 seeded What We Do in the Shadows, a show that is just hitting its stride, versus The Good Place, a comedy that is saying goodbye. What We Do in the Shadows continues to follow the adventures of vampires trying to make it in the modern world, the most horrific fate of all. The Good Place attempts to do in its final season the impossible, which is somehow make us reconciled with the impermanence of those things we hold most dear. It's not enough for the viewer to see these characters say goodbye to each other. We see them say goodbye to existence itself. Spoiler alert, light spoilers preceded this for The Good Place. One group walking the earth for eternity, the other gratefully choosing non-existence. Books. In the year of our Lord 2020, which makes more sense to you?
Oh, definitely leaving eternity. Absolutely. It is The Good Place. If there's anything, if there was like that option of just to peacefully walk through and end this journey, feels right on par. But I wonder if that lessens the comedic effect of this season of The Good Place. Is that ending? Does it take away the comedy and just resonate a little too much? I don't know. I don't know where to land with that.
I think that it lessens the comedic effect and the interpersonal effect. You know, like we don't get to see them hang out enough, and we don't get the jokes because they have so much to do to explain the ending of the show.
Just plot heavy.
Yeah, and that sort of ruins any show where they're like, "This will be our last season, go!" And then they just have to race through all of it.
Versus the funniest season of What We Do in the Shadows.
A show that, sorry, Mike, a show that was not hilarious in the first season, but
Yeah, it was good.
To be honest, I've always thought of the movie as a missed opportunity. The movie never, to me, quite developed into the comedic powerhouse that I thought it was going to.
Right.
And then the first season of this show, near the end, it felt like it started to finally find its legs. In this second season, this is the promise of this premise delivered by like comedic actors at the top of their game, fully in connection to their characters.
We so into their characters, we meet their characters Chris Gaines when we get Matt Berry's Jackie Daytona, and he's not the same because he has a toothpick in his mouth.
And no one can even recognize him if he's got that toothpick in there.
Also, The Good Place has won Moody or Booty Best of the Year TV comedy. Like it has that award. I don't think the final year is its year.
Yeah, that's where
it's hard. Cassie.
Yeah, this matchup is because like it's unfair. It's not unfair. It's just how it happened. Like its last season wasn't its best season. It's a great show, but in terms of comedy, like it wasn't their best season. And then it's going against a show that had the best season of maybe anything. Like so good.
I mean, everybody brings up Jackie Daytona, and rightfully so, but can we remember when they had to take the old-ass vampire out on the town and killed him? Like, made him puke himself to death because of out on the town.
Puke flying. Like, we all thought we were done and over with puke jokes, and they made him fly to another level.
Mike and Greg, you have taken me to New Orleans and Miami. Did this feel familiar?
When you get dehydrated, this is basically what you look like.
And I'm always dehydrated.
The skin tone is definitely the same, I have to say. The fun thing about this is they have great actors on this show, what we do in the shadows, but they also thought of so many really cool premises. The idea where all of their ghosts come back, and then they're hanging out with their ghosts, and now just the ghost of the woman vampire, Nadja, just the doll, like lives in the doll version of her. So like I found myself almost like I have been a fan of gothic fiction. I have been a fan of like vampire lore. I have to say one of the levels I enjoy this show on is just the vampire hijinks. Yeah. Like I really do like that element of it.
And if we were to have 2020 TV horror, then of course Ryan Murphy, like 7 Ryan Murphy shows or whatever, and then What We Do in the Shadows, and I think What We Do in the Shadows could win that as well. It's totally horrifying.
The Topher episode is season 2, right? Where Haley Joel Osment as zombie Topher.
And there's several times where like the vampire, like some group of vampires will just like kill everybody around them. And there's like fleeing that, like Guillermo fleeing like a whole group of vampires. Those scenes are legit scary for big horror babies like me.
When he gets in with the vampire,
that's a rap
group,
name.
And they're going into like the different mansions, and then all of his team is getting picked off like one by one. Yeah.
Or do you remember when the guy who was in love with Natasha drove his motorcycle around the fucking front yard and got his head cut off?
Yeah.
I got scared because I'm often on a motorcycle around things that will cut my head off. That's scary to me.
I have a feeling that we should talk about The Good Place a little bit. Does anybody else feel like one of the things sort of counting against The Good Place is it came out all the way at the beginning of the year, and it's almost hard to even remember? Like, this is pre-pandemic that Good Place was coming out. Like,
wild.
They didn't even
I can't even remember anything's pre-pandemic.
I remember there was a train, there was a big portal they walked through. It was sad.
Do you know who I want to give big ups to is the guy who was at the front desk of all the Netherworlds who was into frogs?
Yeah.
Frog guy.
That guy
Very
ruled.
good. It does. I remember watching it feeling like it does hurt it that like we had to remind ourselves of what happened in this. But like I remember watching it feeling like it wasn't as strong. And I think it's because they brought in like they had so many new characters with like these new like test subjects that they had to prove could also be good, and like it switched up the dynamic like right at the end, which made it hard to like we just loved the cast knew each other so well and could work off each other so well, so you bring in 4 new people, it kind of it hurt it for me.
Having Tahani have to deal with that Perez Hilton type guy, and then Eleanor dealing with every mediocre white man ever in Brent. Like it was still really, you're right. We didn't get the core bouncing off each other as much, but it was still, I think, very funny. And then Jason Sudeikis, Jason Mantzoukas, different Jason just unleashed, always having a martini and in a tux, derricking all around. Like, there's still really fucking fun parts of this season.
Yeah, I find what we notice every year with this is that when a comedy comes back year after year in the bracket, it has to compete against itself, like, to such a high degree that we always have some new thing that we fall in love with. Rammy's second season we haven't even mentioned Rammy's second season tonight. This is the first time someone said it.
That shit was nuts. That season was so crazy. But with comedy, we sort of like want the plot in the background and the character hang out in the jokes in the foreground. And this was the first time that they switched it on this season. You know, like I wanted so much more of the 4 or 5 of them hanging out, and we just didn't get it.
Honestly, even if the story were less neat, even if it sewed up, even if the message was a little weaker or thinned out or whatever, what the people really wanted was, the actors exploring their characters, the ones that we knew and loved.
And we didn't get Chili Pot Cheaty. They peaked with Chili Pot Cheaty, and it's so hard to live up to Jeremy Jeremy and Chili Pot Cheaty. So
it also felt like you had to watch the last season with like an encyclopedia of the show.
Yeah.
Like,
annotated. It had to be annotated.
I just restarted the show for that reason.
I think that's like the downside, because most comedies don't know where to end and they have a hard time. And this ended where it should. At season 4 was where it needed to end, but they wanted to create that perfect ending, and I think they focused too much on that and tying it all neatly up for the fans. But then it would get the same criticism if it didn't do that, right? We'd be like, oh, there were a lot of loose ends. So I don't know if it could win either way. I think season 4 was doomed to be lesser.
There's no way to end.
Well, I think if season 4 is in this round, you did a great fucking job.
Oh,
if
yeah.
if your comedy and it's season 4 can get this deep into it, it's Hall of Fame style.
Yeah, you're an all-timer.
Yeah. Hey now, you're an all-star. Get your votes ready. Let's vote. Ryan, let's start
What
with
we
you.
do in the shadows.
It's What We Do in the Shadows. Caitlin?
What we do in the shadows.
Cassie?
What We Do in the Shadows.
Books?
What we do in the shadows.
Mike?
Yeah. A perfect Mark Hamill cameo that
Oh
surprised
my
everybody.
gosh, yes!
How did we
That
not
would
mention
never
that?
get up to when he surprises us and shows up. It's the best, and no other show has done that. Or will
The
do it
best
better.
of the year for sure.
Yeah. The most iconic Mark Hamill appearance. Very good. What We Do in the Shadows. Moving on. The Good Place. You meant a lot to us. Time for you to fade away. When we come back, more awards. We are back, and it is time to give out another one of these hot awards. They've been on the stove all night, and they are too hot to touch. It's not even comfortable to be in the same room as them. Holy cow. Some hot awards. It is going to be, let's see, Best Actor. We're talking about boys. I got boys on the brain. Let's keep it with the gentleman.
B.O.B.
Yeah, boys on the brain. From What We Do in the Shadows. Ryan, talk to me about Matt Berry, who I believe was on Friends. Matt Berry.
No, that's Matt Perry.
Oh, okay,
Greg.
yes.
No.
And
Matt Berry
I
is Chandler.
couldn't even
Chandler
be
Bong.
more indignant to what you said, but I don't want to talk about Matt Berry tonight, Greg. I want to talk about Jackie Daytona.
Jackie Daytona.
I think is the breakout performance of this year for Matt Berry to be like, "Oh, I'm on a vampire show, cool," to then be a British actor to be like, "I think this is how Americans act." And do that for 30 minutes. That's why I think he deserves this award. His toothpick, his bartending, his honestly, his Ted Lasso-ness.
Yeah, he
right?
became a better person. Jackie Daytona is a much better person.
Yeah,
for sure.
What is his vampire character's name? Not Jackie.
There's something about
Laszlo?
Laszlo, yeah.
There's something about being Laszlo, British, and vampire that brings you down. But when you become an American bartender, you're just the best that humanity
He
has to
helps
offer.
the girls' soccer team of the little town.
Yes, the volleyball team.
The volleyball team.
And he doesn't just help them. He goes to every game and is their biggest fan because he's Jackie goddamn Daytona.
And
Can I does the singing Billy Bass need to be in the award with him? Because I feel like they really worked off each other very well.
yeah, they're comedy partners. I think Matt Berry is I think the Brits have known him for a while because Toast of London. If you're I love him in the show, I love Jackie Daytona, don't go into his music expecting it's going to be funny or charming. It is it's a drag to get into, guys. Don't listen to his albums. That's not taking away from his award and how he should win this, but I'm just saying.
I feel like it's kind of taking away. If he doesn't win now, I'm going to feel like it's that last second, like, by the way.
It's just a PSA.
Music.
But no, he's going to win.
From the great, Caitlin, talk to me about Nicholas Hoult, the great himself.
Oh man, my funny boy, my Mr. King over here. I was really surprised by his performance, and he was so fucking evil, but also hilarious. And
very hot, right?
Yeah.
Is he? Am I misreading that? Is he not? Is Nicholas Hoult not very hot?
I think you just need therapy for what you're attracted to, Greg.
Yeah,
it's always abuse.
He's hot. It's just that Greg thinks he's more hot than Caitlin thinks he's hot.
She's like, yeah, sure, I guess. Well, maybe he's just more my type. I'm very attracted to extremely talented actors. Sue me. Speaking of very talented actors, from Schitt's Creek, McKenna, talk to me about Dan Levy.
I think so. Schitt's Creek gets its final season, and so many of the seasons before, it's been his dad, Eugene Levy, who's kind of carried the show. But this season was Dan Levy's show to shine, and he was fantastic. He had so much growth in the other seasons, but we really see the payoff in this season in his character, and he reflects that. But he's still at his core David, and I think his relationships
You, David.
his relationships really come together and solidify, and his acting, his performance, his timing, it's so good in this season. And I think he kind of overshadowed a little bit of the rest of the cast.
Ryan, I couldn't help but see you throw your arms up in protest when McKenna said that this has been Eugene Levy's show so far.
I would say that Eugene Levy has, season in and season out, been the worst part. That Dan Levy has carried the show, but this is the year that Dan Levy had to have his wedding freakouts, and we've all been there. And then also come to acceptance about his life of like sit on that car and look at that house and be like, I'm still David, but I'm gonna accept this and I'm gonna love this. I think that this is the best he's ever been. And also, like, we're talking about a guy who has not established that much range in his career.
Yeah.
Hasn't had that much career yet.
And I think that this season was the most David that we have gotten so far.
Not to always compare him to his dad, but like think of all the different ways Eugene Levy has played aspects of himself. We've only seen basically like David/Dan so far. From what we do in the shadows, Mike, talk to me about, it must be Kevin Novak, but it looks like Kayvan Novak, but I'm guessing it's Kevin Novak.
This is
Nandor.
The story of a girl
who just wants to give a good gift for a man named Steve. I think that's season 1, but how delighted he is by a little.
No, I think that's season 2.
Is it season 2? How delighted he is by the Steve license plate. And Nandor really walks that like he's a piece of shit, but with a heart of gold. But his heart of gold comes from how dumb he is. And just how delighted he is constantly, and how he treats Guillermo like shit. This guy he's so funny.
If you stopped,
I want Nandor in my life.
If you stopped the action of any episode of this show and asked Nandor what is going on right now, he'd have no idea. He never knows what they're doing or what the plan is.
And then the heart, and because everybody knows, like everybody kind of treats him like that he is, but then how heartbreaking it is that he's forgotten his language because he's the oldest of the vampires, so he can't bond with his ghost the way the rest are bonding with his ghost. Like that pain is like very quietly in his eyes for that.
Man, this is such a
joy that's. The joy that comes in his eyes once he sees his ghost horse and he remembers all of it. Like, the range in that one scene just between this ghost that he couldn't even act with. Like, it was probably like a green screen thing.
Obviously,
the amount of joy.
Nandor is, like, if you've ever played D&D, like, Nandor is the guy who Strahd would, like, go on to be. Like, he was a terrible tyrant, an awful killer, but now that's, like, 400 years ago, and he doesn't even remember that part of himself anymore.
But yeah, watching him scream at someone so much so that they leave the room, and then watching him be like, I'm sorry, as they leave the room. Like, That's a very specific kind of person.
And his dynamic with Guillermo of like who is in charge and who has the power and like, you know, who is moving towards the other and who is repelling the other is just like one of the more interesting parts of the show. From Ted Lasso, the man himself, Jason, I'm the real Ted Lasso Sudeikis. Cassie, what do you think? Does he have what it takes to take it all down?
I think he does. And I don't know, like, I would say, my initial instinct was to say the character's not that hard to play, because I think he comes from, like, Kansas or somewhere, too. I think he's got a little bit of country in him, so, like, you know, you could play that country. But he also has to go from, like, he subtly brings in that the character, you know, has, like, anxiety and is on the verge of breaking. And it's his breakdown, too, that really surprised me. Like, he actually can do more, because I know him from, like, just the comedies he's been in. He's very strong in comedy, obviously. But to see that he can actually also pull in some emotions, like, surprised me.
Oh my God. Based on the other 5 people besides Cassie who are on this show, is Cassie the Ted Lasso of our lives?
I cannot live up to that, no.
When I think of Ted Lasso, I think of one-time panelist, Taylor. Taylor seems like the Ted Lasso of our lives, kind of like a country boy who loves life and sees the best in everyone and always has like an aphorism for the moment.
Cassie, are you going to take that insult? Greg said you're definitely not the great Ted Lasso.
No, it brings me a lot of ease to know that that's not on me. It's definitely
That's
Taylor.
Ted Lasso. That's what he would say.
Okay, well, you're the most Ted Lasso of the remaining panelists.
There we go.
The most Ted Lasso person we haven't driven away yet.
I think to take his divorce in real life and put it into a character and have it play real. And
What
like,
the holy hell?
he has he's Jason Sudeikis leans smarm on the scale. His face is naturally punchable and smarmy. He's just that kind of handsome, and to be able to turn all of that down and just be this heartwarming guy, but who is not a doofus.
I did not see that coming.
All
now
right.
it reminds me of me, Mike. Now you're talking about me.
No, you're a doofus.
Well, it is time for me to open up this red hot envelope.
Can they all just
Open
tie?
here.
Wait, Craig. Can
Ryan.
you do that one more time? Can you read them through?
Okay, so the nominees are Matt Berry, Nicholas Hoult, Dan Levy, Kevin Novak, and Jason Sudeikis.
It should be Nicholas Hoult.
Nicholas Hoult.
Nick Hoult.
Oh, you're saying that's who you think should be the winner.
Yes.
Okay. And the winner actually is Jason Sudeikis. Jason Sudeikis, congratulations. We know that it hasn't all been W's, big guy, but you're still top of the table in our hearts. And you scored a goal, and you're gonna win the championship.
Get on the pitch.
Get on the pitch and throw it in for soccer. When we come back, another matchup. We are back, and our next matchup is number 3 Schitt's Creek versus number 6 Better Things. Another show comes to a conclusion in 2020 with number 3 seeded Schitt's Creek. But at least this fan favorite had the GD decency to remember that it's a comedy and end with a friggin' wedding. Going up against this, it's number 6 seed Better Things, a show that we promise you is so very good, and when it chooses to be so very funny, and will potentially be remembered as one of the best comedies that no one has ever heard of. The Better Things family continued to scream and yell at each other and say things that literally make my heart pound in my chest, but now, 4 seasons in, I am not surprised to see them turn to love and support in every season. Better Things describes a different type of love than that which we see in Schitt's Creek, but Ryan, which show features stronger love? And can it ride that love into the next round?
I think that Schitt's Creek seasons 1 through 5, 4, whatever it was, were really, really good and funny. And I would say that the last season of Schitt's Creek had 2 moments, right? The biggest one being Annie Murphy having to tell her husband, Mike
Ted.
Ravano? Ted. Sorry.
Ted.
I wish Annie Murphy's husband was Mike Ravano.
Hello!
Oh my God.
That they're better off apart. They're
better off Ted.
that was hard hitting and heart hitting and heart hurting. But Better Things does that every week in, week out. I mean, Better Things has that Bat Sierra where they combined a bat mitzvah with a quinceanera, and that is, I sort of think that's all you need for an entire season of TV, and yet they had more episodes. This is, we have to admit right now that this is the least funny, most Good Place-esque, sweep everything together season of Schitt's Creek.
Yeah,
and that it pales in comparison to better things.
I cried at the end of Schitt's Creek, and I cried at the documentary they made about the end of Schitt's Creek. I love this show. I've dressed up as David on several occasions. It's nice to have a big browed man just on screen. But I think one of the funniest moments is he got a hand job the day of his wedding. Not knowing he was supposed to get a hand job. All of that, like, it's still very funny, but it really is. At a certain point, they're like, oh, people like when we're sweet, and they just hit the gas on that and less on the jokes. And Better Things, there's a reason it's the best comedy you've never seen. I don't know why you've never seen it, but it is. Yeah,
That's my supposition, is that nobody has. I feel
you're
like
right,
this show,
man. Nobody's watched it.
It only exists in the time right before we record this show, and then while we record it, and then I don't think about it the rest of the year. Nobody ever talks about it, and that is all in spite of the fact that it is like one of the best written, one of the best acted, one of the best shot,
most
shows
profound,
on television, and is. Yeah, and very timely, and has taught me like so much about what love can be. That family, like those four women love each other in a way that is so different than any love I've experienced, but seems so profound and so deep, really.
And so strong, and
they
so
use the
hurtful,
bad C word,
and it's
at
hurtful
each other.
because it's so profound, and it's so profound because it's so hurtful. Yeah, I've never seen a show like this. And every year, for the last 5 years of my life, I have tried to get this to be the number one comedy of the year. It has not worked so far, but I'm going to.
So people just don't like
tonight.
Ryan. That's the key.
Yeah, that makes sense.
It is
this year.
It's a show that makes me feel so much, and it hurt, and I laugh too throughout it. But I wonder why, because I have the same situation, Greg. I don't know why I don't think about it beyond this podcast. After I'm done watching it, I forget all about it. I don't wait to see what season announcements are coming or what news is. And I don't know if it's just me as a flawed human being that doesn't like things that make me feel too much. Yeah. Or
I wonder if it's that it doesn't because what Pamela Adlon's doing is making like this series of short films, like a few creepy comedians also try to do. And now we don't want to talk about it anymore. And not as well.
I don't know who you're talking about.
There's a few of them, unfortunately. Masters of Louis. And but so there's not like this episode ends like and
there's
question mark amount of time jumps between each episode. So it is just all these vignettes and stories of this family life. So it doesn't have that like hook that pulls you through a season of TV.
Literally every episode that ends, it could be the first episode. The way the ending of these episodes feels so conclusive. Mm-hmm. At the end of every single episode, I'm like, is that the season finale? Yeah. Because that's how strongly like the episodes come to a real legitimate conclusion.
And as much as I love that episode, I hope that it is, so as to not watch more. Like I don't want to.
I think there's a reason people even be pre-Panny just rewatch The Office over and over again, and Schitt's Creek is the new Office. Like there's not a lot of heartwarm in Better Things, or at least you have to walk through a lot more shit and those complicated feelings, and most people go to sitcoms for not complexity.
Well, this is a comedy bracket, so we go for those good feel-good moments that Schitt's Creek does offer, and I feel like even though I would say the last season it is like tying it all up, I feel like it does a great job with the wedding, all of the craziness that Dan Levy's character has to go through, and the hand job, the being a bridezilla just at the end, and then calming down. I don't know. I really love this episode, this last season of Schitt's Creek.
But
Better
even
Things
though
just hits too hard for me to be in the comedy bracket. It's more of a drama, I think.
Okay, so I get that. I could say I could hear the argument that it's 30 minutes, but it's a drama, and that maybe we should have moved it into the other bracket. But the things that we're always going to take away from Schitt's Creek is that Annie and Ted breakup. It's going to be the things that Better Things gives us week in, week out, and Schitt's Creek sort of maybe kind of remembers to do when it's not being funny, because this is the least funny season of the entire show.
Yeah, there is something like freeing about knowing that a show is coming to a conclusion, but there's also something stultifying about it. This show felt very much imprisoned by the fact that it was coming to an end, and it felt like it had to put such a model and cast on everything. And I think that that's part of why the weirdness with the David getting a hand job the night before his wedding, just to like break up a little bit of just having it be that everybody cries because it's the last day.
But
on set.
Did you get a little bit Alexis? Did you not laugh with a little bit Alexis? Fucking dying.
I'm a little bit single, even when I'm not. Yeah, I mean, we celebrate a little bit Alexis here. I have that.
It's on Spotify, guys. You can listen to it like every day, all day. It's
such a good song. You know what? I would say it's my favorite song. It's better than the Paris Hilton single.
I don't know why that wasn't on our the album of the year. I know it was a single, but
it's a good point.
We fucked up.
Yeah.
The only thing that scares me about Better Things is that actually this season, I think in a lot of ways was the least arduous emotionally. And I kind of feel like that's like setting us up or something because the girls start kind of going easier on Pamela Adlon's character, Sam. And there is kind of that rapprochement between Sam and her ex-husband. I don't know. That almost scares me. Like, that's too much good stuff.
So next season might be booted out of the bracket because it's so hard.
Well, you look at these young women and you see how many like pitfalls there are potentially for them. This season we see Duke get into ballet, and she obviously becomes kind of fixated on her eating. And we see Frankie like trying to establish an identity. And so you just see like all these things that could potentially happen to them that would harm them being a young woman in this fucked up world.
And with Frankie, it's a non-binary identity, which means I don't have two options. I have a million options. And then the mom just saying like, all right, no matter what, I'm here with you. Let's go through this together. And then being told, no, you will not go through this with me. And then the mom saying, but I'm here for you and I'm going to go through it with you. It's not super funny. I know the point of tonight is to be comedy, but I think it is an incredible show.
Well, it is time to vote one of these two on. So let's start with you, Books. Which should it be? The number 3 seed Schitt's Creek or number 6 Better Things?
This is really tough, but I do have to agree for like the comedy aspect. I do think Schitt's Creek, although it's the weakest season we got of Schitt's Creek, it gets my vote.
All right, so that's one for Schitt's Creek and one very loud protest. Mike, what's it going to be? Number 3 Schitt's Creek or number 6 Better Things?
Schitt's Creek is one of my favorite shows. Better Things is a better show. Better Things.
Is it a comedy though?
One.
Yeah.
1 and 1. Caitlin, you tell me. What is it? Schitt's Creek or Better Things?
I'm going to go with the one that made me laugh a lot more, so it's going to go Schitt's Creek.
All right, 2-1 Schitt's Creek. Cassie, what do you say?
I'm in timeout from this one. I would vote Schitt's Creek, but I'm in timeout.
Yeah, you're like me in high school, abstaining. All right, Ryan, what's it gonna be for you, Schitt's Creek or Better Things?
It was one of the worst seasons. No, the worst season of Schitt's Creek versus
by far.
An incredible season of Better Things. It's Better Things.
Oh no, that means
Sorry,
it's tied.
Greg.
Which means it comes to me, the tiebreaker. I never want to have to make any decisions, and yet here I am. I have to say, I love Schitt's Creek. Obviously, I don't have anything against it. Its season was probably one of the best seasons of any comedy ever, but it was not up to the standards of Schitt's Creek. And one of these times, we have to recognize the greatness of Better Things. I declare that time is right now. Better Things moves on to the next round. When we come back, we are going to get into the next round of matchups. In our next round, our next matchup is the number 1 overall seed, Ted Lasso, versus the number 4 seed, How To, with John Wilson. A titanic matchup of the good guys. Books. What do you think? Can you make heads or tails? This is good guy versus good guy. Do you agree?
This
so
is
then
good
go to
guy.
books, of course.
Books is the good person we know.
Yeah, this
one.
is the only one. This is good guy versus good guy, and I think it's a question of like, do we want to see crafted and perfectly written good guy versus good guy who has to interact with the real world around us? And that's a deeper question. Do you think that? Oh, I don't even know where I was going with that train of
Let me
thought.
ask you this. Did Ted Lasso, because I sort of think I think How To with John Wilson is sort of perfect. Did Ted Lasso betray you in any way?
No. It was beautiful. It was absolutely flawless. Every moment, every aspect, every character built towards such a great show.
I only think that one really kind of silly quibble I have with it, which is that as somebody who
American
follows,
football?
just because it's like, imagine there was a show about the NFL and it was like, well, you know, you're on the Cincinnati Bengals, so we like, this is kind of a smaller club. And so he was like, the guy that should help me coach is the guy who washes the towels for the Cincinnati Bengals. That doesn't seem that.
I get what you're saying, but I think that's a silly quibble because, like, then there's been no good war movie because nobody actually shows how war is. Like, right? Like any
Come and See
subgenre
showed what war is like, Mike.
There was no
there's
Nathan in
one.
Come and See.
They didn't get to the heart of it because he became like a shit-on character for the players. But in real life, the people who are in those positions are the people that the players go to first for issues or concerns, not the coaches.
Yeah.
So he had, like, his job is a bigger role. He's just treated like shit because his character doesn't speak up.
The thing that's hard for me, though, is that I'm already Ted Lasso. I'm already that positive towards other people. Whereas How To showed me a whole new look on life that I had never thought about before.
Does anybody? It seems to me like How To is almost like a found footage show. Do we have a sense
But
of
not
how,
scary.
Yeah. But do we have a sense of like, is any part of it scripted? There were moments with some of the people he talked to where I was like, that kind of seems scripted to me. He was talking to the Mandela Effect guy, and the Mandela Effect guy said of flip-flops, he said, it used to be you would hear the flip and then not hear the flop. It's not that way anymore. Come on.
And
Is that a real line?
Moments like that, and it's also that maybe this is just how good he is at talking to people and how long he hangs out at places, but everywhere he goes, he finds somebody to lead him off what the show's started to be about and is now about a bigger, crazier thing.
Uh-huh.
So, but that doesn't bother me. Like,
oh, no. It doesn't bother me either. I just, it's something I thought about the show, which is like, it because there is a certain element that the show gathers from the idea that it's just one guy with his camera going out into the world.
Right.
Like that does create some of the energy for the show. And so then if some of the things are scripted, it's not a complaint so much as it's just something I was interested in. Because there is a part where he's like, I'm going to go figure out how to make risotto. And he just walks into a random person's house. And the guy spends like 3 hours talking to him about how to make risotto.
Yeah.
And if that really happened in that way, which it seems like it did, that's so magical. And the show uses a little bit of that magic, you know?
I'm guessing there's producers.
Yeah. I mean, nothing springs up like sui generis, right? Like there's probably somebody contacted that guy and said, hey, will you teach my friend John how to make risotto? Also, I thought in the first episode, I thought of him as like a big like lone wolf or maybe even a loner. But this dude has a lot of friends. Over the course of the show, you see this dude interact with like 20 different attractive people, and it's like, oh, okay.
His
fake.
birthday party, I was like, that's
fake.
way too many friends. How do you have that many? What did you do?
You both are making me so sad for you. Because I looked at that and went, it's a fine amount for a birthday party.
Okay.
It's a fine amount of friends, but not for somebody who you thought of as maybe
Right.
like a loner, you know. And I don't hold that against him either. But these two shows have our two nicest guys in them. But the emotional moments in How To with John Wilson, and I don't want to get into spoiler territory. So if you haven't seen the show, and you want to skip ahead here, maybe like skip ahead the next couple of minutes, because I do want to talk about where the show ends up, because I think it's not. I don't think we can really talk about it and really evaluate it without. So we're going to get into spoiler territory here. the show seems to be not about COVID at all, and then runs into COVID.
Yeah.
Did that hurt you? What was the emotional effect of suddenly having COVID like come into this show?
I mean, Ted Lasso, in a lot of ways, is a fantasy. Like, you can't act like that and be successful. You have to be the opposite of Ted Lasso to be successful. Whereas I think that watching John Wilson, that felt so much more real because he was like, "Oh, I have filmed these episodes. Oh my God, it's COVID." In my head, he is Raymond Barone. But,
everybody is. You hear everybody
Deborah,
in that voice.
COVID.
I
so
feel like
one was fantasy nice guy and one was realistic nice guy.
that's a big claim to make, though, that you have to be the opposite of Ted Lasso to be successful. Because if that was true, it wouldn't have any effect on us. Like, Ted Lasso as a character wouldn't impact us as people.
Well, because
Ryan, you would be
I've
successful.
always been the opposite of Ted Lasso, and I've never been successful. But yeah, I understand it.
I made the same
joke,
joke, but
Mike.
faster.
Good joke, Mike.
It's weird. John Wilson's like a nice guy, but also unforgiving in his interview style because like part of what makes it awkward is the fact that he does not give the people he's interviewing a way out. Like they will say something and he will leave dead air, like find your way out. It's brutal to watch him like do that to each person.
I'm thinking
every person he talks to.
In particular of that guy who he meets, like he goes up into the mountains and he like flags down a guy who has like one of those diesel trucks that really just puts all that terrible smoke into the air. And he asks the guy why he does that. And the guy's like, I don't know. I like to. It's fun. And then he's like, do you worry about the environment? And the guy for like 5 minutes finally comes around and he's like, I don't have an answer for that. I don't have a good answer for why it's okay for me to do this. And he's just like, okay. Like he just
Well, that goes back to he doesn't judge, like, and that's probably what hurts people more, because if he got mean, they could get mean back.
Yeah.
But it's so defeating for him to be like, oh.
What I'm nervous about, Greg, is that if we had like art of the year, right? So it was like How To with John Wilson versus some museum thing that a museum did versus Fiona Apple. That would be difficult. Like, what is the art piece of the year? But as far as TV comedy goes, I think that changes things. You know, I think that like Ted Lasso is going to sweep in and sort of did everything that John Wilson did, and then a lot more.
Yeah, it's because like having the narrow confines of what a TV comedy does, like being more than anything we normally genreify, could hurt John Wilson here. Where Ted Lasso is inarguably a TV comedy and inarguably a great TV comedy.
It's hard to vote against. Because it has fucking Ted Lasso, the character of Ted Lasso.
Yeah, if you told him you were going to vote for John Wilson, you'd be like, no, I get it, man. He just does things that I don't do, huh? We all have our strengths.
I understand how you're feeling, buddy, and I appreciate your integrity.
think in a
Shut
lot
up,
of ways.
Ted Lasso, you're playing mind games with me.
A vote for him is a vote for me because I agree with you, buddy. All right. So, but it is time to vote. So what is it going to be? Number 1 seed Ted Lasso or number 4 seed How To with John Wilson? Ryan?
I have to just go with, because I'm like super artsy, Greg. You probably don't know that.
Yeah, and a little bit fartsy.
And a little bit fartsy. I'm going to go with How To.
All right. You surprised me a little bit there, Ryan. I have to admit, you kind of seem to be making the comedy argument for a little bit, but that is 1 vote for How To. Caitlin, what do you think it's going to be, Ted Lasso or How To?
Ted Lasso was just really brilliant show that had a lot of hope in it, and I feel like you left it every single time having more hope for humanity, more hope for everyone, and then just thinking about everyone differently, like because you totally underestimate this dude that you think is a big doofus in the beginning, and you learn all these different things about him. And John Wilson does a similar thing like that, but I think I liked Ted Lasso much better, so I'm going to go with Ted Lasso.
Is it because John Wilson gives you like a bleaker hope? Because it's hope, but things are still sad and bad.
I go to TV for escapism. So yes,
not to be inside of your own brain. So, oh, why do they hand me a camera?
You make a really good point though, Mike, that the hope from How To with John Wilson is not that things will get better, but that we will get better at dealing with how bad things are. So next up is Cassie. Cassie, Ted Lasso or How To with John Wilson?
For me, it's going to be Ted Lasso.
All right, that's 2 for Ted Lasso. Books?
I'm also going to go with Ted Lasso.
3 for Ted Lasso, Mike.
Yeah, I think we pinned it down that if this was best pop culture of 2020, How To with John Wilson would win. But I think best TV comedy, Ted Lasso just gets that.
Yeah.
I got to go with Ted Lasso.
So
yeah.
Ted Lasso, moving on. I have to say, when his landlord does not die in the last episode, I had almost been crying for like the last half of the last episode because it's all just about how fucked up COVID is. When his landlord has a stroke but then does not die and comes back to the house, I almost fell over sobbing. That was like as hard, I think, as I've ever cried at like watching something. It was a crazy experience. I've never felt that while actually like just watching something.
So, hey, listeners, if you're out there and you've not heard of any of these two shows, watch the last 2 episodes of Ted Lasso with the last episode of How To with John Wilson, and you will sob your fucking balls off.
You'll get a lot of stuff out. All right, so our next matchup is What We Do in the Shadows, which is the number 2 seed, versus number 6 seed, Better Things. Better Things, another one of these comedies that you just watch and you just cry. You maybe laugh a little bit, but you're definitely going to cry. Versus What We Do in the Shadows, where you might cry from laughing. Ryan?
I cannot believe
Speak on that.
Like, I quit What We Do in the Shadows because I did not like the first season. And then I was talked into watching the second season. It was so much better. But Better Things is what deserves to move on. Better Things is such a good show.
Yeah, I feel like we're kind of getting into that same territory that we just were in with the last matchup, right? Isn't it the better piece of art is probably Better Things, but the better comedy, isn't the better comedy definitely What We Do in the Shadows, Mike?
Also, Better Things is very funny.
If we're talking LPMs, What We Do in the Shadows is the heaviest of weights of this year. And I love Better Things. Better Things is a great show. Everybody should watch, so it's not just us at the tail end of every year being like, we watch this and talk about it. But I don't know if we need like another 5 minutes to talk about this battle.
Also, if you've not heard our hit single, it's called Better Things, in parentheses, We Watch This, where we sing an entire song about how we watch this.
Better Things. We watch
Dietrich
this.
Bader.
Season
He gets
1.
real sad.
Dude, okay. Dietrich Bader, who was in Harley Quinn as Batman and does an amazing job.
An amazing Batman voice.
Yes.
Plays Pamela Adlon's best friend / soulmate, really, / like kind of like the actual dad to her kids, although his penis wasn't involved, but he does everything that's not that part of it.
Right.
He fucking is such an amazing actor. He killed it. He's so good in this, and like he has a couple like lines in this season where it's just like very, very impressive stuff.
I'm sorry. Between everything that Greg just said and his work on the Drew Carey show, is Dietrich Bader a future pop filter Hall of Famer?
He has to be, right? Office Space as well?
Yeah, I was going to say, it's crazy knowing him from Office Space and Drew Carey and then watching his range in Better Things. It's like, I knew you were funny. I didn't know you could do this.
Man,
and your name is very hard to say, which I am impressed by.
all this
makes you seem fancy.
All this means is the next time we have a Pop Filter Hall of Fame segment, we're all going to come with Dietrich Bader, and it's going to be amazing.
Yes. We're all going to chant Dietrich Bader. He's going to get a special place in the Pop Filter Hall of Fame. But, man, What We Do in the Shadows, this is like, I have to say, of both of these shows, there is not a bad performance, even in a minor character. In the entire seasons of either of these shows, like everyone that appears on screen, even for a moment, is doing an amazing job. But the comedic chops of the main actors in What We Do in the Shadows, this is like some of the best work. I mean, Guillermo obviously won for Best Supporting Actor, and I guess we haven't done Best Actor yet, or did we do that one?
We did Best Actor. We haven't done Best Actress yet.
Okay, we did Best Actress, and that was Jason Sudeikis. But it easily could have been Matt Berry or the guy that plays Nandor or the energy
Vanessa
vampire.
Bayer.
Huh?
Vanessa Bayer slowly getting her energy sucked by Vanessa Bayer's like an office worker. Like, they're all amazing.
She's another energy vampire,
right?
And handled that.
Yeah. They like battle each other. But it is... Oh, go.
Oh, sorry. It's just like, for comedy, like, I could say premises of episodes for What We Do in the Shadows, and just that alone is funny. Like, when
Chuck
they go to a super... when they go to the Super Bowl party and they think they're celebrating a superb owl. Fucking funny.
Superb owl. The owl never showed up.
Leaving. We never got to see the owl, but it was a great night.
That they're friends with this fucking mook from Staten Island, like the mookiest of mooks, and they actually like him.
And they erase his memory until it's like he doesn't even remember like how to person at all.
But he loves his wife.
We talked about they hang out with their ghosts. They get invited to like one of the like Anne Rice style like theater of vampires, and it turns out to be a trap. But just their whole explanation of this like circus of vampires, like partial nudity, top and bottom.
The curse email.
Yes,
freaking out over the chick.
Look, we have to get people's emails. There has to be someone. Oh crap. Okay, but it is time to vote. So what is it going to be? Let's see. Cassie, let's start with you. Is it What We Do in the Shadows or Better Things?
For me, What We Do in the Shadows was almost a perfect comedy. I'm voting that one.
All right. Caitlin?
What We Do in the Shadows.
Ryan?
Better Things.
Mike?
What We Do in the Shadows.
Oh, Books?
What We Do in the Shadows.
Better Things. We love you. We really do. We love you so much. The problem is you exist in some sort of third space. You're neither drama nor comedy. You're always going to get outclassed by some comedy that's just trying to sex us up with their great jokes and bits.
Well, next year, wait for a new episode of Booty, which is Booty something, where all of the drama comedies go into that bracket.
Yeah.
We need a third bracket.
Dramedies.
Kamamas.
Well, that is it for that round. So we know our finals, what is going to be What We Do in the Shadows versus Ted Lasso. Chalk is 1 versus 2. But before we do that, we have to pick the best actress. Awards. Everybody likes them, but nobody wants to give them away. Well, we went ahead and solved that by giving out awards to all our favorite actors and actresses in comedies. Now it's time to pick the best actress. From Better Things, Pamela Adlon. Ryan, do you know who this is?
I do. I feel like this is the star of the single best actress of any comedy or drama that we've talked about tonight. I don't understand how she does it, and I understand that she gets a lot of shit for being the person who is like, oh, comedies aren't funny anymore? Let me double down on that and make them even less funny than they have ever been before. But still, Pamela Adlon, who was once one Bobby Hill, is doing it over here on a show that she is raising 3 daughters, and they're all terrible, and she's making it awesome.
And they dealt with that this season when she had to like re-audition for Ring of the Mill or whatever.
Yeah.
Ring of the Mill, which is like a Lord of the Rings, King of the Hill mixture.
Mm-hmm.
And then
was Chicken Boy.
Was told in this episode what more and more actors are going to be told in the next few years, which is we're going to use computers to take a dead person
from
and
like
just,
the 50s or something,
yeah.
right?
And just use his programmed voice instead. So you're out of here.
And I want to point out the fact that Pamela Adlon is 5'1", whereas Ted Lasso is 7'3". So
Jason Sudeikis is very tall.
That's a big.
Yeah,
That's
he
a big,
can
that's
dunk
a big deficit
without jumping.
I didn't know either were that short. Or, I don't know height.
Yeah.
I don't know height.
I'm sorry. I'm
Ryan's my height
one
man.
of these elites who knows about height. From What We Do in the Shadows, Natasha Demetrio. Mike.
Undersung hero of this show, man. I do like we talked about how great Matt Berry and Kevin are. But I think she does a lot with a little. She gets big when it needs to be, but like talking about the subtlety and throwing to the camera, like she understands the full complexity of Nadja. And
She seems to me, from my like just watching a little bit of season 1 to see, and then all of season 2, she seems like the one that took like the big leap forward in terms of like finding the character and her ad libs and everything.
Yeah.
And she is the king or queen of looking at the camera and being like, what the fuck?
Yeah. And just man, she should win just based on how she says the name Jeff. And making fun of what a weak modern name it is. Jesh.
Jesh.
Also, when she meets her ghost and they just are like the best of friends together, like her acting in that scene alone with just like her back and forth is so great to watch.
Also, she handled that doll, and I'm one of the best actors, and I would not have been able to handle that doll.
From the great Caitlin, it's Elle Fanning.
Oh man, Elle Fanning. So I only knew Dakota Fanning prior to this. I knew she had like a sister, but I'd never seen her in anything else. And she blew me away with how mature she is and how she really conveyed so much through this character, but also made it funny somehow. So I was blown away by her performance. And man, she had to pee a lot in this. And every time she peed, I laughed. So that was good too. I like that part.
Onto branches.
Onto like some I don't know what it was called. Wheat.
It was onto wheat, and it actually did flour. And to say that she was pregnant, I was surprised by that because it did not seem like something that would really happen.
Yeah, I need to look that up if that's true or not because that blew my mind. And I was
by look it up, do you mean just start peeing on wheat?
Yes, I need to grab a bundle and piss on it.
It's technically called the Great Asterisk. And then the asterisk is a mostly true story, so that part of it might not actually.
That's the one part. Everything else
perfectly
the only
accurate.
part is true. Is you can.
I thought of her as an actress. Obviously, I did not think of her as having the comedic chops. That she has. She's a very comfortable comedic actor.
Her natural timing is what surprised me. Like it seemed like she needed no coaching on that. Like when she needed to deliver a funny line, her timing was perfect.
I feel like we're in the era of Elizabeth Olsen and Elle Fanning, and Dakota, Mary Kate, and Ashley can get the fuck out of here.
Hey, older sisters, kick rocks.
That's so sad. Okay. Up next from Schitt's Creek, McKenna, it's Anna Murphy. A little bit Alexis.
A little bit Alexis. I think we've talked about this moment so often, but when she breaks up with Ted, we see so much emotional depth in her delivery because most of the time she gets to just be a little bit Alexis and just drive home with her moments. And there's a great way of her comedy is not the typical comedy of just delivering lines or having perfect timing. It's her hand movements. It's her mouth movements. It's so much of her body language. And you see over the seasons her grow in this ability to adapt her similar hand movements, but in a genuine way as opposed to a disinterested way. And that's talented. That's a very difficult thing to do from, first playing with your hair, being like, okay, so could you stop talking so I can get to my point, to playing with her hair to be like, okay, I'm genuinely interested, but I also have issues, in the later seasons. And I think she does that very well.
I've already said this about the season, but that is the moment of the season, right? Like what she does in that moment where she's still Alexis, but still has feelings, but is still Alexis. That was so good. It was so good.
Yeah, she will go down in history as the person who made how you hold a purse funny. She invented funny purse holding. But Cassie, the last nominee is also from Schitt's Creek. It's Pop Filter Hall of Famer Catherine O'Hara.
Yeah, it's insane. When you throw in these big names in here who have already, she is known to be great, and then, to come back for this, because I think she came for, a pilot or whatever, and didn't think she was going to be a part of it. Yeah. And, there could be nobody else for this role. The way, she made everybody say bebe differently. It's the way she does everything, it just changed culture, I feel. There is a whole, there's Schitt's Creek, Catherine O'Hara, way to talk.
She's so good in this role of Moira that all the other family shit grew and arced, and she just didn't, and we're all fine with that.
She liked her daughter by the end, and that was her growth.
That's the growth.
The coolest thing about this character is that Catherine O'Hara is actually the most down to earth person. I'll be honest, a lot of people, when we put them in the Pop Filter Hall of Fame, you do see them change. You see a different side of them after that because they feel so good about it. But she has really stayed grounded, and it's just, I saw I went to a cast not meet and greet because I was so far away from them, but reading.
Oh, they're going to say the opposite. Not meet and greet because we were friends, but like a party.
No. Like they did a reading of a script and then answered some questions and everything. And you would think that she was like an extra or something. She's just so quiet and so unassuming. And then obviously when the cameras start rolling,
how you know power, man.
So anybody want to guess who won?
Wait, one more time. Go through them.
Okay, one more time. Host the show. The nominees are Pamela Adlon, Natasha Demetrio, Elle Fanning, Annie Murphy, excuse me, and Catherine O'Hara.
It's very clearly Pamela Adlon, star of the best show in the comedy bracket.
But actually, it is surprise, surprise, surprise. It's Catherine O'Hara.
Hall of Fame bump.
When 2 different panelists own Funko Pop figurines of your character, there's probably a pretty good chance that you're going to win. When we come back, we are going to pick the best comedy of 2020. It has come time, ladies and gentlemen, to pick the best comedy of 2020. We must be teachers because we fucking love chalk. The number 1 seed, Ted Lasso, versus the number 2 seed, What We Do in the Shadows. Well, we made this bed for ourselves. Let's lie in it. Mike, what do you think?
I love the fact that we have to tell one of these 2 great shows, fuck you, bitch. Get out of here.
Yeah, you are nothing to us. You are garbage. Better luck next time, jackasses.
I think my new goal is because we did 1 versus 2 for the albums, 1 versus 2 for comedy. I'm going to do everything I can to make something weird happen in the drama show.
That's what you think. That's what you think.
No,
and you're just going to go pure chalk,
my
Mike.
heels. I think Ted Lasso has that new show Glint on it. It's the one show on Apple Plus people watched. And we're like, oh, this might be a streaming service worth having. But man, What We Do in the Shadows, I don't think there's a funnier show on television.
Wouldn't you feel like a big stupid jackass if we left and we didn't proclaim What We Do in the Shadows the best comedy of 2020?
It came out like in February. I watched it then, went, well, I have my winner, and didn't watch any of the shows till last week. And I was right.
It's so hard to know where to vote on this one because there is no show that can make you feel the way that Ted Lasso does. I don't think it couldn't have come out in a more perfect time too, where it was one that made everybody want to be better. But if you're going to a comedy, I know it's just What We Do in the Shadows is so perfect.
I totally
so
agree.
funny.
I feel like that if there was a bracket that was like, what is the show that is most like a giant stuffed animal? Ted Lasso has it, no problem. But What We Do in the Shadows, Ted Lasso is amazing, but What We Do in the Shadows is mind-blowing. I'm sorry, Caitlin, go ahead.
Oh, no, I just said it's so funny. I was like, you just continue to laugh. And it's one of those shows where you laugh out loud, which a lot of shows you watch and it's funny and just like giggle to yourself or laugh in your head. No, I was laughing out loud watching What We Do in the Shadows. And I don't feel like there's a lot of shows that do that now.
I want to, going back and they're already gone because everybody's saying The Great Place or The Good Place lost some miles off its speedball.
Can you imagine The Great Place? With a bunch of foreign people in heaven?
Chidi drawing that horse so badly and that it's horrifically and vomiting blood and stuff is the hardest I've laughed alone in years.
Yeah,
but
they kept making the graphics a little bit better each year on that show, all so that they could have that horse really
worth it.
Hey, McKenna, yesterday I got a text from Greg that said, oh, What We Do in the Shadows is taking this whole thing down. Does that piss you off? Does that make you want to vote the other way?
It does make me want to vote the other way, just to be the devious person. I think this is a really tough category, and it kind of comes down to, because they're both fantastic shows, it comes down to what you look for in a comedy. Do you look for something that's going to restore your soul a little bit? Do you look for character growth? Do you want to see, goodness as well as humor and comedy? Or do you just want to laugh and remember how much you laughed and laugh about the scenes?
If you say you're going to restore my soul, I'm in. That seems like such an amazing thing.
It sounds like the kind of thing they would try to do on What We Do in the Shadows, and then it would not go very well.
All right.
Another Topher kind of situation.
What We Do in the Shadows is the only show brave enough to look at Nick Kroll and actually show him for what he is, which is a rich, petty little fuckhead.
Yes, totally. That is the real Nick Kroll, not this big mouth, not lovable John Mulaney's friend. That is not the real Nick Kroll. He's
this
gross
is the
and unctuous and awful, and that's where all his power
daddy
comes
is one of the
from.
richest people in the country.
Do you guys think it's possible? I don't know how this is going to go down, but do you guys think it's possible for Ted Lasso season 2 to beat What We Do in the Shadows season 3?
Yeah, if What We Do in the Shadows loses grip a little, then sure. I'm showing all my cards.
I also think it's going to be tough because season 1 of Ted Lasso felt so perfect. I don't know if we have many places to go. I'm nervous for season 2 of Ted Lasso.
And also, the end of season 1 of Ted Lasso dumped the Major League sort of plot line. Like now the
They're
league
relegated.
is like yeah, and they even did that by like quoting Major League. They said like let's win the whole fucking thing. So I don't know where they're gonna go. I bet that Roy is gonna be an assistant coach.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Like he's not going anywhere.
No,
he's
he's needed.
Well, yeah, now it's going to be about them being with all the bad news bears, and they're trying to climb back into the real league.
Honestly, they did the best thing they possibly could have for the show, which is having them be relegated. That's going to be so interesting to watch them go and like they thought they were kind of like a lower ranked team before. When you drop leagues, you lose so much money, so they're going to be playing in like real rinky dink stadiums. I think it gives them a lot of places to go with the show. Well, that's the future, but what I'm interested in, ladies and gentlemen, is the present, which is to say the recent past, which is to say 2020 and the comedies thereof. We need to pick which one is moving on. We have number 1, Ted Lasso. It is facing off against number 2, What We Do in the Shadows. Mike, which is moving on?
I think everybody should often be in the shadows, and that is my vote. Is What We Do in the Shadows.
Very good. That's 1 for What We Do in the Shadows. Caitlin, what do you think should move on? Twilight the show or Soccer the show?
Oh, man. Great, you stole it from me. I was just about to say the vampires.
Oh, I'm sorry. That's awful. I'm sorry.
I'm obviously going to vote for the vampires always. What We Do in the Shadows. So good.
How rude. I just say took your thing. Okay. So that's 2 for What We Do in the Shadows. Ryan, what do you say? Ted Lasso or What We Do in the Shadows?
I cannot tell you what I went through last night watching the 2 last episodes of Ted Lasso. Like I was crying, I was screaming, I was cheering. Like it was so nuts. But What We Do in the Shadows, I could not believe how great it was. If it was Ted Lasso minus the Jackie Daytona episode of What We Do in the Shadows, then that might be close. But I do have to go with What We Do in the Shadows.
What We Do in the Shadows for Ryan. Who? Raise your hand if you've not voted yet, because I instantly lost track. Cassie?
I'm going to vote again.
I want to vote again. This one is the hardest thing. It makes sense that they're 1 and 2. For me, it's a weird thing where I think Ted Lasso exists as, the best show overall, but if we're going comedy, it's What We Do in the Shadows. So that's where I'm voting.
All right. Books, is it going to be a clean sweep? Do you agree it's What We Do in the Shadows?
There's a part of me that just wants to just be that asshole to make it not a clean sweep because I think
do
Ted
appreciate
Lasso is so good, and I feel like we're almost making Ted Lasso seem not as great as it is, and it is a fantastic show. So you know what? I know What We Do in the Shadows is going to take it, but I'm still voting for Ted Lasso. I think it's fantastic.
Oh shit!
Nice.
Good for you. That keeps it from being.
This is how I got her to vote for Biden, guys. Is I was like, everybody's voting for Trump. Everybody's saying Trump is going to win, and she's like, well, fuck that.
I have to do the opposite.
Yikes.
I have to say that feels right to me. This is just such a good show. It's the perfect season for it. It's the perfect year for it. It was fun to watch. It was awesome. What We Do in the Shadows, your 2020 comedy of the year. I want to thank all the panelists, especially the Unnatural 20s who put up with so much to help us monkey around and pick the best shows. Next week, we will be moving away from the comedies that make us cry to the dramas that make us laugh. I've been your host, Greg. See you next time, and until then, keep watching them comedy shows.